Okay, everybody. It is 10:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started right on time. The presentation should be about 20, leaving about 10 minutes for questions for those of you who have questions. Thank you guys all so much for coming. My name is Tom Daly. This is installment number 2 of The Daily Show, which is what we're affectionately calling our webinar series that we're offering some regular education with some great local speakers and national speakers on various topics related to HR and benefits and everything that swirls around it. I usually am kind of the host of this. Today I'm sort of the host and the presenter. So normally when I'm hosting, I'm like interjecting all kinds of questions here and there. So since I'm not able to interject on myself, I would welcome questions from anybody that does have questions. It can stop me along. This is 7 slides with just a lot of pictures and then a cover page and a question slide at the end. So hopefully this will be a good conversation or a good education for everybody. Everybody that knows me, and it looks like a lot of the folks here have dealt with me over the years and know this is a bit of a passion of mine. So it's something I enjoy talking about, and it's something I enjoy working with, and it's a message that I definitely want to get out. So the format of this meeting is basically I'm going to a couple of slides on just kind of the state of affairs we're in relative to technology, my own little personal technology journey, just kidding. And then I get into kind of how that impacts human resources. For those of you just looking for the answer to the question, is technology taking the human out of human resources? Just to relieve you, it is absolutely not. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit as well. But you know, feel free, if everybody that's familiar with working with these GoToMeetings or GoToWebinars, there's a chat section there. We have some folks in the office, Ophelia and Megan, monitoring for us. You can also raise your hand for questions. We can turn on your mic if you're brave enough to do that. And or you can chat out a question, and we can read that and kind of answer that for everyone. So I'll go ahead and get started. So first off, I mentioned I would talk a little bit about kind of the state of affairs. This is a little bit of my inspiration for this presentation, believe it or not. It's Epcot. I'm sure you guys kind of recognize this. If you haven't been to Epcot in a while, I would recommend going. It is quite an experience. Built in 1982, and that was the state-of-the-art technology in 1982. And the funny thing about the whole Epcot experience is as kind of you're going through this, it's supposed to be like the future. It's like the most futuristic thing in the world, but it talks about kind of how, you know, things in time have basically ramped up the evolution of technology and communication ideas. The things that they talk about are the advent of the printing press, you know, the Gutenberg printing press, and then, you know, switchboard operators for phones, and how that basically changed the game for everything. And the minute we could stop writing on stone tablets and cave walls and start sharing information among each other, the pace of education and sharing of information just drastically changed, and it's kind of led to where we go. The funny thing about that whole thing, though, is you get to the end and they have like, tomorrow is here, and then you're walking around in this thing that was built in 1982, and you realize really quickly that tomorrow, at least the way they built it, was a heck of a long time ago. Just to kind of frame of reference it, in that same year, 1982, the first cell phone, if you want to even call that thing a cell phone up there, came on the scenes, you know, and I think this is just funny. This isn't to share and let you guys read all of these things, but obviously the story is look at what technology, how it's something that we know and love today and use so frequently has evolved in a relatively short period of time in the scheme of things. So, you know, from 1982, and this only goes to 2007, a lot of folks are probably looking at that 2007 version of an iPhone and saying, oh my gosh, look at how old that looks, which is, you know, part of what this statement's all about. I forget who said this, but I saw this somewhere, and I feel like I've said it 100 times since I saw it. But you know, change has never happened as fast as it's happening today before, but it's never going to be this slow again either. And I thought, I don't know why that resonates with me, because it isn't just that things are changing quickly, and they've always changed quickly. It's that things are changing at an exponentially fast rate. And with this, especially this, because you know, in 1982, you know, this wasn't for, you know, everyone, but now everyone, almost everyone, has a cell phone, And cell phone, it's almost a misnomer calling these things cell phones or smartphones, because they're as powerful as these NASA computers that existed not all that long ago, and we're all walking around with them in our pockets. It all gives us immediate access to any question or answer we want. We can take pictures and send them. We can share and connect in a digital way. And there's a whole generation of people, a lot of them entering the workplace right now, that have really come of age in this world, not in the world that I did, where I kind of sort of remember some of these things, but that really were 12 and 13 and 14 years old and have had these types of devices at their fingertips since that time. So that changes a lot, and it changes just expectations for folks, and how they interact with each other, how they expect to interact with each other, how they expect to share information with each other. So some things, as much as things change, some things don't change. And if you're somebody who had a dream one day and all of a sudden started a business of your own, and you were lucky enough to make enough money and clients and revenues to basically survive yourself, and maybe you were so successful that now so many people wanted what you did or sold that you needed help to do it. Well, when you need help, you all of a sudden need employees, and that employment world still exists. The things that need to happen in that world still exist, but the way they happened has changed tremendously. You still need to go out and find the person that's going to be a good fit for your organization. You need to hire that person, and you need to manage. And I made these things kind of getting progressively bigger and more pronounced, because those things can mean a whole heck of a lot of things when it comes to managing an employee. First you find them, then you hire them, and then you have to try to keep them in your organization, and that means training them, orienting them to the job, what tools and things you offer to them for them to use to do the job. Safety measures in certain industries, that's huge. Specific job skills relative to the job, to the position that's being filled. Reviewing and monitoring all of that performance over time, doing performance reviews, changing job descriptions, evolving someone's role within an organization is all part of management. Also tracking of things, hours and time off and benefit elections, and then now there's a big new element of reporting that comes along with that as well. But so all those things still need to be done. As a matter of fact, not only do they just need to be done, there's a lot more that's being added to the plate of the human resources person today, in the way of administering your plans and tracking and remaining compliant with plans. So it's not just hey, I need you to help me dig this hole and I'll give you a chicken at the end of the day kind of thing. There's a lot of tracking and reporting that needs to be done on the front end while someone's employed and at the point of termination. The bigger you are as an organization, the more intense that becomes. The more willing the government or governmental agency or state agency is expected to ask of you in jobs that you do. And that's the thing that I think has probably changed the most. The general kind of census of things to do and what you're trying to accomplish hasn't changed, but the ways that you go about it at least should evolve. What we find out when we're talking to folks, though, is that largely a lot of them haven't. People are still, when you're hired as a new employee of any company, most people are given a pack of forms. They got to verify their citizenship. They got to do their W-4 designations. They got to enroll in any and all of the plans that are being offered. They got to do direct deposits. They got to also now report on all of those pieces of information that have been gathered, both at the initial onboarding process, basic information that they pull from you when you're getting into the company, and then now everything you kind of do on a month-to-month basis after you've been employed. Like I said, the hours that you've worked, the time that you've taken off, the benefit elections that you've made. The 1095 form is one that I have out here now because this is sort of the newest, latest, and greatest IRS form that is now required of every employer that's offering coverage to provide to their employees. If they have 50 or more employees, they're required to provide this, just like they're required to provide a 1099 to people that have done contract work for them through the year, or they're required to provide a W-2 for the folks that they've employed through the year and done their withholdings. And those forms were probably pretty daunting when they were first rolled out as well. But, you know, essentially they're really kind of annually capturing some basic elements. You know, a new tweak to things with these 1095 forms in particular is it's ongoing tracking. So, you know, employers that have, you know, consistent workforce and everybody's employed for the entire year, maybe there's a little streamlining that they can do here where they capture just some general codes. But if they have mid-year plan renewals and things change along the way here, or people are coming on or going off, that changes everything about these codes and these different sections. Not to mention you have to know what those codes are, and payroll providers in particular, which are the ones that have kind of been at the helm of you know, when you outsource your payroll, you're basically outsourcing a lot of this W-2 preparation, sometimes 1099 preparation, and remission of your taxes to the appropriate governmental entities. But they're kind of in the best position, or they've felt like they've been in the best position to gather and complete these things, and their client base is the most used to them doing this kind of thing for them. But between, you know, all of us, we've seen a lot of different payroll providers over the years that have kind of tackled this new job in a lot of different ways, and each entity has done it slightly differently, and there have been a few little kind of glitches to the data collection and the form completions and the submissions, and there's been a little bit of a reprieve given to large employers on, you know, the scrutiny of these types of forms as they're submitted, at least in that first year, which was last year, of completing these. But just like the penalties for the individual mandate have ramped up over time as people have kind of gotten to know the plans and heard the story that they have to do this, et cetera, the scrutiny that will be made on these forms as well is going to be elevated as well, and they're going to cross-reference these with other information that's submitted both on individual tax returns, subsidy applications on healthcare.gov, that kind of thing. And while right now we feel like things are kind of going into what we have to imagine is a little bit of a black hole, eventually where we're sending all of this information is going to be somewhat connected and reconciled, so that the governmental entity that's receiving these can verify the veracity of this information. So that's just another big old homework assignment for an employer, you know, something else that they need to do. And, you know, while paper was this vast improvement over stone tablets and writing on cave walls, for the purpose of this, it's really, really not. And like I said, the expectation level of most folks' employees is not to be given a stack of paperwork that needs to be manually completed, and for that information to be extracted from that piece of paper and then put into this Excel spreadsheet, and for that Excel spreadsheet to be forwarded to another entity that needs to take it out of that and put it into their system. There is a genuine expectation, and you can ask any one of your millennial employees this. There's a genuine expectation that data should not be shared that way. They've come of age in a world where it was not. They've seen how easy they can share pictures and publish things themselves and post things and they just do not understand how and why someone would give them a piece of paper, or even worse, they do not understand why somebody would give them multiple pieces of paper that they would need to put the same information on. And the goal of that, putting information on paper, would be to get that same information over to an entity of some kind that ultimately needs to do something with that information, process it, and honestly put it into a system of their own. So they're expecting phones and emails and texts and cell phones to be used, and web applications to be used as a way to more efficiently share information. And they will look at you like you're crazy or have a horn coming out of your head if you give them a packet with 20 pages of paper in there that they need to complete at the time of employment. You know, maybe it's their first job, so they just think, wow, this is just the world I'm entering into. But but ultimately they're making a I can't believe it's this way type of a judgment as well. And they're right, to be honest. That is not the best means to capture data, and certainly not the best information to transmit or share that data with multiple parties. So, so the technology, fortunately, or unfortunately, if you look at a slide list like this and it absolutely freaks you out, that problem has generated more venture capital money in the last 3 or 4 years than in the history of mankind. As a matter of fact, in 2015, $2.4 billion was invested in HR technology companies, not technology companies in general, but HR-related technology companies have had $2.5 billion invested in them in 2015. In 2016, in the first quarter of 2016, there had already been $106 million invested, or excuse me, I'm sorry, $600 million invested on 106 different deals. There were 383 deals done in 2015. They're already on pace to do at least the same amount in funding and even more deals. So what does that mean? What does that deal thing mean? Well, that means that the problem that is recruiting, or the problem of finding an appropriate employee, or bringing them on board to an organization, all the different pieces of the roles that an employer would play, that finding the person, hiring the person, and then managing the person, has kind of fallen into a bunch of different categories of software systems that have been built. And here's just a few. This is not what I would consider an extensive list at all. As a matter of fact, I was looking at this last night, and LinkedIn is not on this. I don't know an HR person or recruiter that doesn't use LinkedIn almost every day. So these are the software providers that have come on the scene to address specific problems, not to mention the software solutions. Maybe LinkedIn is kind of the old guy, it started way back in 2004 or something, and that's just, the tried and true systems. A lot of these have really come on the scene in the last 3 to 5 years. Some of them more recently than that. But they've been given an enormous amount of money, which means that the venture capital community completely understands that there's a ton of work to be done relative to all of those things that we talked about. Applicant tracking, reviewing, posting, and that software, because of its scalability and nature, is well suited to tackle and handle these problems. And also the software, the technology in general, has gotten to a point where that is much, much easier than it's ever been. You have users that are more skilled users, and you have software that can be built and deployed and brought down market. A lot of these software solutions, typically you build some insanely complicated software solution, and you're really only knocking on the door of Fortune 500 companies to sell that, because they're the only ones that can maybe potentially afford this. These kinds of technologies have been built and deployed, and they're being deployed further and farther down market. The real pain in our world starts at 50 employees or greater, meaning that's when all that reporting requirements and employer mandates and all that fun stuff really starts. But if you're, we're 7 people in our company, and it's a job to do all of those things, to recruit, to post a position and recruit and bring somebody in and do the interviews. There's time associated with that. And then once you bring them on board, setting up email addresses and making sure that they understand what the bathroom code is, and how to make copies on the copy machine, and all the different things that go on, in addition to capturing some of that data that we talked about, and making sure that we have enough information in hand and in systems to pay them by the time their first payday comes up. And that's all outside of, doing the real human things relative to employment, which is like making sure you're giving somebody a job, a path, a career path, making sure you're touching base with them from time to time to see how they're doing. Is this going in the direction that you wanted it to go? Is the evolution of this industry something that's exciting to you? What's the next role you see for yourself? Those are things that, fortunately, at least so far today, a computer or software program cannot do for you. So, that's what we're seeing, and obviously our role is we stand between employers and insurance companies primarily, and that's where we live. We live trying to make that crazy relationship work. And I'll describe it as a crazy relationship because it is. We deal with some of the most amazing things on a daily basis. Just this morning, I have to share this one. We got an email from Blue Cross of Louisiana, who's building their own systems, as is every carrier, building their own systems. So we get a secure email from Blue Cross this morning telling us, or asking that we reformat our electronic data submission to them to, instead of using Calibri font, we use an Arial Narrow font. So I don't want to pull this up and show it because it has at the bottom of the secure email all of these disclaimers, like I'm not supposed to forward that to anybody, but we had to log into a secure email server system to find out that the electronic form that we submitted to a carrier for a submission for a client needs a font change, and that's crazy, and I can't even anticipate what the next crazy request may be, and I know where they come from. They come from, these carriers, these administrators, all of these folks that we use are all building their own systems that also house some of the same information that's being captured from a recruiting system or from an onboarding system or from an HR and benefits management system or from a culture and productivity system. A lot of the same information exists there, and it needs to be on a carrier site of some kind. And, much as I used to think that the world was moving towards everything kind of in this connected world, each one of these entities on this page, as well as each one of the companies that provides insurance or payroll for that matter, or administrative services around insurance and payroll, they're under the gun to protect the data they collect and use for whatever purposes they use. And, you hear a half dozen stories, a year or so on data breaches at different insurance companies or cellular providers or whatever. There's real implications to an employer not managing their data properly. What does that mean to them? That means protecting it and locking it down and making it less likely to be shared, to receive information in or to push information out. And that's crazy because that is what we're all trying to do is share information, and yet I don't think that's getting better. I think there's a willingness, but there's a difficulty there because everybody, ADP isn't going to let some onboarding system that they haven't vetted out feed information into their system or even access their system if they're having to protect their system. And that was something that was a very public scuffle that happened a couple of years ago with one of the largest, software as a service vendors that popped on the scenes, that initially popped on the scenes as an integrated solution with ADP, and when they got sideways with each other, most people speculate because they wanted to ultimately compete with each other and do what each other did, but ultimately what ADP used as the excuse for not wanting to play nice and share data and things like this was the fact that they didn't know what protocols and protections were in place to protect that data coming in, so they had to lock it down. Who knows if that's 100% true or not, but the bottom line is that's what's going on right there. So there literally are thousands of players that exist in all kinds of different categories of the employment world, and they range and they share information, and some are better than others. And though maybe a payroll system might have a tool for some of these things, it might not have the best applicant management system or recruiting system. It might not have the best timekeeping system. We run into a lot of folks who have timekeeping systems that are tied into their billing systems for clients. And they're custom designed for that, and that's the way they need to keep time. So maybe the payroll vendor is developing time tracking for the masses and not necessarily catering to a specific industry or group. Same thing happens for onboarding. Same thing happens for recruiting. They'll come and they'll develop for niches, and then they'll, how they develop beyond that or what features and functionalities they add along the way are up to them and up to how successful they are. So I guess the point of kind of getting into all of this, and it's kind of ending a little bit where I started with this conversation, which is the role of human beings as part of the technology implementation process around human resources is not going away. I mean, far and away not going away. To me, it's evolved in a very significant way. And if that is missed on anyone, that's a problem, particularly at the, when you get to the 40 and 50, when you get anywhere above 50 or even sniffed around 50, you got to have an expectation that somebody somewhere is going to expect that good records are being kept, data is being captured at the right times, in the right places, and in the right format that's needed for all of this reporting stuff that comes. Not to mention beyond the reporting things, there's individual mandates, and so the government is also trying to police individuals that may or may not be appropriately applying for subsidies on these exchanges. And a big driver of whether or not they're even able to get a subsidy on the exchange is whether or not they were offered coverage at their employer's office. So you have a situation where, say you're a 25 or 30 person group, and you're not required to report anything relative to 1095s and things like this, and so you're not submitting 1095 information or letting anybody know what you do, and your employees are going to exchanges and saying that they're not offered affordable coverage at work. Well, that sounds to an employee that's applying for coverage like an objective question. Are you offered affordable coverage at work? Well, the federal government actually defines affordable as 9.5% of earnings, and that comes out to a $10 an hour person at like $160 a month. To $10 an hour person, $165 a month doesn't sound very affordable. So if somebody asks them, are you offered affordable coverage at work? And they're also telling them, if you say no to this question, you won't qualify for this subsidy. There's a chance they're going to say yes. Well, then once they're provided a subsidy, we're starting to see these come now. Letters are going to employers. Hey, we noticed so-and-so is got a subsidy last year, and they said that they didn't have coverage at work. Can you let us know whether coverage was provided at work or not? They're trying to fish around for that. They're trying to say, okay, are you an over 50 employer group? Are you offering, are you not offering coverage when you're really under a mandate to do so? And if you're not, then that's a whole nother line of penalties, they can go down the road of. So the HR professional, it's not a filing job anymore. It's not a people person. I just want to be the rah-rah cheerleader for the team and the employee advocate. The HR professional in today's world needs to be almost an attorney relative to the compliance information that they need to know. That's an overstatement, obviously, but they need to be conversant with all these different rules and regulations, particularly as they're getting to be a large employer. They need to be comfortable with technology is everywhere, and the people that sell it are amazing at selling the value of the technology. It's not the buying of the technology. That's easy. You can sign a contract and start paying it per employee per month like tomorrow. The job around all of that stuff is for you what you wanted it to do, like making it improve your life or shorten the time frame on bringing on a new hire, and or making sure that if somebody sends you a data request one day, that doesn't ruin your day because you have to go to 3 different systems trying to hope you find that data that they're requesting because you don't really have a system to maintain it necessarily. The role of the HR person, the good ones, the ones that are going to kind of have, have some career path to them and growth to them, are going to be all about, strategy, maintaining the big picture, but then also being comfortable enough in the weeds of some of these solutions, and then picking good partners. I'm passionate about this stuff. Our shop is passionate about this stuff. I see there's a lot of people that are actually clients of ours here that have actually started using some of the technology, or been introduced to it over the last couple of years. To us, technology has never been the solution. It's been a tool that we can't imagine how we could get without to accomplish a task. And the task hasn't changed all that much. Maybe the things have been ramped up a little bit, but the task hasn't changed as much as just the options to perform the task. So we just want to make sure that everybody that understands kind of how this evolution is taking place doesn't run from it in any ways, because you do have people. I said I'm passionate about this, but also I said that I live in between insurance companies and employer groups. So our job to make that a less painful interaction. And if that means employing technology to do that, then that's what we're doing, And so we're providing every one of our clients with benefits administration technology. But the thing that we're seeing kind of evolve from that, and that's something that we just share access to, and it helps us do our job, helps them do their job, we think. But what we're seeing kind of evolve from that is that's kind of the evidence that some automation around HR, works to streamline a task relative to HR. And then people start kind of thinking, okay, well, how different is onboarding somebody from performing an open enrollment with somebody, meaning passing out W-4s and I-9s and capturing that information, getting sign-offs on handbooks. There's some, the more we ask that question of employers, the more we realize that every company has evolved into a different world of onboarding, largely paper-based, but it's kind of unique from company to company based on the type of work that the employees do and the type of data being captured, who that data needs to go to. We're starting to see a lot more workers' compensation company-inspired data gathering points on the front end of employment. That seems to, I don't know if that's a new trend or if that's just something that's been around a long time, and we're just being made aware of it as we're getting brought into these conversations. But we want to make sure that everybody fully understands both that there's these tools out here and that there's support from people like us that are kind of in there with you, have some similar goals, and can share access and take some of the load off. I don't know if I left much time for questions there because I feel like I was just nonstop talking, but do we have any questions? Anybody have anything that they want to pose to us? I know I'm kind of high-level overviewing this, and the real meaningful stuff comes when we're actually taking an onboarding document or an enrollment packet and automating that, like taking a real paper-based task and turning it into an automated task. And that's something that obviously we can't get into in that level of detail in a presentation like this. But if there are no questions relative to the presentation today, we will be recording this. This will be available for reference, and we're always here. We feel like our role in the process is to bring a little bit more of that human touch to the implementation of technology and sharing that job with you guys. So if you ever need help with that, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and ask. And if you have questions on anything that I've talked about today or any of these vendors that you saw, we've done more demos than anybody I know. So we can speak conversantly about that. So don't ever hesitate to ask. And thank you guys very much for attending. And look for our next meeting we have coming up next week. I believe Amy Landry is going to be our presenter, and I've gotten a little bit of a highlight of that presentation. It should be great. So be on the lookout for that as well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.